But I had to Google it. I was like, wait a second, is this just from songs or is this like a real thing?
Yeah. Right. No, but
like figgy pudding. Is figgy pudding a real thing?
I don't know what figgy pudding is.
You know, those like
Bring us some figgy pudding. Oh, bring
no,
Gemma, it's not Christmas yet.
Coming up on Need to Know, the new holiday Starbucks menu. Are Bundt cakes making a comeback? And we have a special guest, Kiano Moju, chef and author of the new book, AfriCal. All that and everything else you need to know. Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Need to Know. I'm Gemma Stafford, professional chef, cookbook author and creator of Bigger Bolder Baking. And as always, I'm joined by two lovely ladies, Gemma and her lovely ladies, Shukla, who is the culinary director here for Bigger Bolder Baking, and Tianna Cohen, who is a professional host and an amateur baker.
So we spent a lot of time this season talking about the PSL pumpkin spice lattes, but did you know that it is officially Starbucks holiday season? They're just came out about a few days ago with their new holiday menu, and that means there is a return of the red Starbucks cups and a whole plethora of drinks. Singer Lana Del Rey loves peppermint mochas, and she requests them all year round. I guess she tries to get them on standby for her because she loves them so much. Also coming back to Starbucks is peppermint hot chocolate, the eggnog latte, gingerbread latte, chestnut praline latte, and the caramel brulee latte. Oh my gosh. I know. Have you had any of these?
No, doesn't it all start to just taste like, I'm just wondering, there's the caramel latte, the creme brulee latte, the gingerbread latte would be different.
Very sweet.
I do think I've had like a taste of an eggnog latte. It's just very sweet. So you do get a caffeine hit. But yeah, I agree with Anna, very sweet.
I don't like my coffee to be my dessert. I really like to have dessert and then have a bitter cup of coffee to go with it.
Yeah.
So personally, my daughter would say something completely different. Like this would be the best menu she's ever read in her life.
Have you ever had a peppermint mocha? Anyone? Yeah. I feel like I've talked about this before. I can't get on board with like mint and chocolate together, which I know is an unpopular opinion. But to me, like peppermint, like that minty flavor is just, I think it's like a mint. It's toothpaste. Yeah. And so I've never been a peppermint mocha gal. I just can't.
I like mint chocolate.
Yes.
I love it.
Do you know what's not on your list? Let me see now. I haven't had one in a long time, but they used to do this seasonally also, which was salted caramel hot chocolate.
Yes.
And during the holiday season, I would probably have it was kind of like when I was out like Christmas shopping or I was kind of out and about and whatever. And I'd probably have around 3 during the season. Mm-hmm. But so it's really nice hot chocolate. What I think is really nice hot chocolate, and then they put caramel sauce, but then they have this little like secret jar of sprinkles that they sprinkle on top, and it's like I think it's like salty and sweet and whatever, but it is so good. That's my holiday drink at Starbucks. And I think they might do it. I think at one point they did it year round then because it became so popular, but I don't know if they do it anymore.
It wasn't on this list, but I think maybe they still could do it if they have the caramel.
One day she didn't have sprinkles. I asked her and she said, we don't have the sprinkles.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, so is the hot chocolate sweet and then they put sweet caramel in there on top of that?
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's a treat, remember?
It's a treat.
Oh, it's a treat.
Remember when we talked about like go get yourself a little treat? This is Gemma's little treat.
Okay. But you know what I would do? I would make like a salted caramel sauce and mix it with milk and then put cocoa powder in it without any extra sugar so it wouldn't be overly sweet. Now I kind of want to do that.
Yeah.
Just to prove that I could make
this is
Starbucks. Oh, there you go.
I'm glad I'm happy my drink wasn't thrown at me.
Yeah. You go make that and bring it to us and then we'll try it. But in addition to their drinks, Starbucks also offers a ton of holiday treats. And so I'd like to break those down with you. They have their cranberry bliss bar. They have a sugar plum cheese Danish, peppermint brownie cake pop, and then a gingerbread loaf in like a
Yum. I can get on board a gingerbread loaf.
I can get on board a gingerbread
Sugar
loaf.
plums.
Well, yeah. I actually, I saw that and I wanted, I thought, what is a sugar plum?
I had to Google it. Did you Google it too?
I did. And it turns out that
it's a real thing.
Yeah, it's like an old fashioned, it's basically like the first energy bar. it's like dried fruit and nuts, kind of like, it's like a Luna bar, but it's like in a ball. It's like, this is basically what it is. It's
A
like
sugar plum?
Shaped like a plum, and shaped like a plum, and it's coated in sugar.
no plums in it. I mean, there could be prunes in it, maybe, but which are dried
Interesting.
plums. But it's dried fruit and nuts coated in sugar, and they're plum shaped, which is where.
And they have the line down the middle and everything. But I had to Google it. I was like, wait a second, is this just from songs, or is this like a real thing?
Right. No, but
Like
A
figgy
nutcracker?
pudding. Is figgy pudding a real thing?
I don't know what figgy pudding is.
You know, those like bring
us
me some figgy pudding.
Oh, bring
Oh,
us
no.
Gemma, it's not Christmas yet.
But then, but the Starbucks one is just plum jam.
Yeah.
It's like a Danish with plum jam and cheese. So it's not it's not actually a sugar plum.
A sugar
it's
plum.
Okay.
sugary plum.
They were
jam.
just reaching. So what Ami is saying.
They were trying to be
like-
on theme.
I feel like we may have been the only ones to have Googled that.
Yeah.
The three of us here, and like everyone else is like, sure, sugar plum.
Sugar plum's a thing.
It does look like it tastes good.
Yeah.
It's probably delicious.
Have you ever had the cranberry bliss bar?
Do you know what? I'm sorry, I haven't actually had them, but I think they sell really well because
They
they
do.
started selling boxes of them.
Yeah. They sell out, I feel like, every
Yeah.
year too. And it's like a
So what is it? Is it sugar cookie? What is it?
No, it's like a blondie.
it's
with
like a blondie,
cranberry And like
White chocolate
and
on
like
top,
white
right?
chocolate, yeah.
So, yeah.
yeah. I feel like it's also like they package it because it could be a gift. Like the
Yeah,
way it's
rectangle-
packaged.
it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's
Oh.
lovely.
It'd be a good if you need to bring something and you're just already gonna stop at Starbucks for a drink.
Oh,
Grab
yeah,
a
then why
cranberry
not?
cranberry bliss bar.
The cake pops. What flavor cake pop? Was it gingerbread?
No, it's peppermint brownie, which I would
Brownie.
not.
George
be-
wouldn't like that.
See?
No, he's all about cake pops.
I mean, cake pops are sweet, but they're so cute. But
Yeah.
they're sweet.
Does it
But-
look like a reindeer or something?
Yeah, they do reindeer, and then I think they do like a snowman
or
every
something?
year.
Aw, that's nice.
And then I've never had the gingerbread loaf, but I do like Starbucks' like pumpkin bread loaves and like their lemon loaf.
I love pumpkin bread.
Yeah.
I think that's
So I feel like
so
the
good.
gingerbread loaf will probably be good. So on TikTok, Tonight Show host Jimmy Fallon made a really funny TikTok with his daughter predicting that Bundt cakes are making a comeback. And it was a hilarious video. They made this beautiful Bundt cake with like swirled. Yeah, thank you. It like swirled up. It was gorgeous.
Yeah.
And so I want to know your thoughts. Like, do you think Bundt cakes are making a comeback? Did they ever go away?
I
Yeah.
love a Bundt cake.
No, I think they became also even more popular in the last few years.
Yeah.
No, Ami, you are a fan of a Bundt cake.
Yeah.
But I have to say though, it's not really about the cake. It's just about the pan. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
like it is kind of like just a pound cake, right?
No, I think it's really ultimately about the simplicity of it. You can feed a lot of people with it. You make a simple Bundt cake. It really does. You can put a glaze on it. You can put nothing on it and serve it with some whipped cream and berries, depending on the cake. It's really like you can serve it after dinner as a casual dessert. You can serve it for tea. You can put it on a brunch table. You can throw a bunch of berries in like a vanilla Bundt cake and serve it on a brunch table. Like they're just very versatile. They're unassuming. They're always sort of dense and satisfying. I just think they're great. I don't know why, if they would have ever gone out. I think maybe they're just not exciting, but they're solid, like a good, solid choice.
Yeah, I think they're exciting. In college, I didn't have, I was poor and couldn't buy a bunch of different tins, and so I only had a Bundt cake tin for a really long time. So I would make everything in a Bundt cake. So like I would make banana bread or my pumpkin bread, like. Anything I'm baked for a really long time was in the shape of a Bundt cake, and it did the job. I thought it was great. So, actress and pretend cooking show host Jennifer Gardner says she doesn't want to write a cookbook. In this article, she was cited to say she hears that it's really difficult and there can be a lot of challenges when writing one. So, Gemma, I wanted to know, you have written 2 cookbooks, and what were some of your biggest challenges when doing that?
When writing a cookbook, you have usually a tight deadline. You don't have, which sounds like you have a year and a half to write it. You're like, oh, that's great. I've loads of time, and you don't. The reality is, you just don't. Writing is an editing what you're writing. It's like the recipe testing and stuff. I remember for the last cookbook, we did that so fast. We did a few days. Like a week for a few weeks. Like we did that so fast, but the writing and the editing takes so much time. And then when eventually when you do hand your manuscript over, it comes back to you again to be edited from the publisher. So it is so time consuming. I don't know how I did it with George. I think it was because he was so young. I don't remember, but I don't know how I had a young child and was up in the morning and staying up in the evening writing a cookbook, because that's what you have to do. You like, there's not enough hours in the day. And the thing about it is, if your job was only to write cookbooks, then lovely, you can do it from 9 to 5. But generally, people who are writing cookbooks have full-time jobs, and maybe they're chefs or they're content creators, which requires so many hours. So you're doing it on top of your job. So you have to become really good at time management and where you spend your time and not wasting your time, and just like lists and, you know, just plan it all out. Like, you know your delivery date for your manuscript, then work backwards.
Yeah.
It is. It's a very stressful time.
Is there like a formula for how much content of like each category in a cookbook? Like if you're going to have desserts or meats, or like how do you structure it?
It totally depends on the person who's writing the book. And then what the publisher, what they've previously seen sell really well, what they haven't. If you say like, hey, I want to do a whole pile of pasta dishes, and they're like, you know, we don't really need a pasta book right now, which, you know, can happen. And a lot of times the publisher, a lot of people don't know this, but they can dictate what kind of book you're going to have. Like I wanted my second book to be a savory book, and the publisher said no. And I came up. Well, I'm very proud of my second book, but I originally I wanted it to be a savory book, and they were like, no, we just don't want that. And then it turns out, come publishing date, that they had another chef they'd already they had gotten the manuscript from, who was publishing a savory book, and that's why they didn't want me to do one. So it's not an easy time. I don't know if I will ever do it again. Yeah.
I mean, I do think, there was something about like just you talked about this, like the methodical nature of it, like, you know, having to be so organized about all the recipes, but also just organizing the recipes themselves. Like once Gemma had come up with the list of all of the things she wanted to make, then we had to figure out, well, what are we saying with these recipes? What's the story that this book is telling? Yeah. And having to organize them into times of day or times of the week, or what are we saying? What's the message? And like that took us a long time. I remember, and we kind of went back and forth a lot about it, and like, oh, well, what should it be? When is someone baking? How would someone be using this book?
And this is the editing that I'm talking about. The editing is all the way throughout the processes. So like what Ami is saying is, you're editing as you're even testing recipes. You're like, wait a second, this doesn't fit here. This doesn't seem right. And then if you have to move something into a different chapter, does something else have to get moved out? And then you're moving stuff around.
Oh, and I even remember this other thing that was so funny. You know, aside from the recipe testing, you know, Gemma has so many recipes with her first book, all through the website. And we would come up with these great ideas. And then I'd be like, oh, it's in your first book. Oh, it's on the website. Oh,
yeah. Didn't we already do that? This sounds really good. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Before you like 3 times.
It was just so like coming up with like new and different ideas and things that we hadn't explored before, and things that we were going to go develop, or that also ended up being, even you know, getting towards the end, as we felt like, the rest of the book is set. Wait. We've already done that exact recipe somewhere else. I remember that being very frustrating at times. You know,
just a giant puzzle. It sounds like.
Yeah,
it is. Like you're constantly editing until the publisher says we're done. Like that's it. It's a crazy time. It is, as a creator, as a chef. Like it was. I'm very proud of my 2 books. The 2 of them tell a very different story. I love using my cookbooks. I use my second one all the time. But it's with just how hectic my schedule is, that I don't know if I don't, maybe there'll be a time in my life where I'll decide to do that again, but it's not going to be right now.
Yeah. Well, great. Well, thank you both so much. I am so excited to move into In the Mix today, because we actually have our very first special guest coming to our show today. So we'll be right back. We're going to go get Kiano Moju, cookbook author of AfriCal, and talk to her about her cookbook and some more fun stuff. So we'll be right back. We're back with In the Mix and our first special guest here at Need to Know podcast, and that is Kiano Moju, author of AfriCal. Welcome, Kiano. Thank you for being here. Gemma, Ami, and we're all very excited to have you. So you are not only a cookbook author, you are a food advocate, a producer, a director, and a video host. And I would love for you to tell us a little bit about the inspiration that sparked writing this, your first cookbook.
It is my first cookbook. AfriCal is very much a reflection of the food I like to make at home. I have parents from 2 different countries. My mom's from Kenya. My dad's from Nigeria. I grew up in California. So it's a lot of culture and a lot of flavor to be blessed with in the kitchen. But it's really a way to bring those flavors from my heritage into like my everyday recipes. So the recipes in AfriCal will give you an introduction to like a lot of flavors we use a lot in Kenyan and Nigerian food, but very much looking at the things you can find in your local grocery store versus a specialty market.
I read in the beginning of your book, the book is dedicated to your mom, and you have the section about how when you were little, she would give you dough to like play with in the kitchen. And so I just thought you could share a little bit about how her cooking, like as you grew up, how that really influenced you now. And is there any recipe in this book that is like a direct from her, like seeing her cook when you were younger?
So my mother is a cook out of necessity. She's the eldest of 11 kids.
Wow.
So she's like, we just got to get food on the table and she needs to rest. So I showed a great interest in cooking and she was like, we don't have time for that. So she put me in cooking class from when I was pretty young, like around age 7, because she saw I was very interested in cooking. And so she's like, okay, you want to learn? These people will teach you. And then on weekends, I would get to experiment and like feed my family. I would make like tiny little menus out of like, what was it, Word Art on Microsoft? Like printed out. Clip art, like little menus. And she's like, only one copy. Ink's not cheap. So I make like one copy for everyone and like have like little restaurant. It wasn't even dinner parties, like full like a little restaurant. I had a notepad to take everyone's orders for drinks.
Aww.
And I did this throughout my childhood and no one was ever discouraging. Even and I now know there were chapters where the food wasn't very great, but they were just like very encouraging of everything I was cooking and just gave me the confidence to keep experimenting until I'm here.
Wonderful. What a great story. I love that.
I noticed in the book that you'll have to educate me a little bit that in Africa, and having parents from 2 very different areas, I'm noticing that there's bhajis in their book, a type of bhaji, and then there's croquettes and like there's crepes in there also. Like where does in Africa, where does it pull that influence from?
So Kenya is on the coast of East Africa along the Indian Ocean. So the flavors that you'll find, especially in coastal Kenyan food, are going to be a lot more reflective of what's coming from the Indian Ocean than what's happening maybe somewhere in West Africa. And so we have a lot of influence coming in from the Middle East. Like even the Swahili language itself is majority derivative from Arabic.
Oh, wow.
So there's a lot of cultural influence there over centuries. And then during the colonial era, when the British colonized Kenya, they brought rail workers from India to build the railway. So you also have, which were also heavily influenced by Middle Eastern food. So it's kind of this ecosystem of all these countries along that region have a lot of common ingredients or variations of a name, like samosa, sambusa, sambusek. They all came from the same place and just were shared through trade. And so you'll see, if you're familiar with maybe like Indian cuisine, you'll see things in AfriCal like chai, chapati, samosas, dawa. But then once you read how they're made, you're gonna be like, it's a little different. The name's carried on, but the execution, so it's like same, but different.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I thought that like it's such like the number one. Your book is gorgeous. The color is fantastic. But just the variety was really like it's exciting to see that from like one cuisine from one country. I mean,
yeah, no, Kenyan food has a lot. I would say the book probably has more Kenyan influence than Nigerian, just because I spent so much time in Kenya. I spent my summers, like, the summer holiday when you're at school. I would go to Kenya on my grandparents' ranch and just do ranch stuff and hang out. So it's very much has been ingrained in my forming of culinary, because ranch stuff is food stuff. It's, making sure the baby animals don't get let out when it's time for grazing. It's milking cows, which I probably never filled a bucket myself, but I always tried. It's getting eggs, getting firewood to make food. So much of my food learning is influenced by Kenya. So it probably has the heaviest inspiration. Yeah. But even Nigerian food, like, it's so delicious. So even the dish on the cover of the book is inspired by the flavors of, like, Nigerian stew, just made into, like, a vodka sauce.
What so when you say that there's a lot of Indian influence in Kenyan food, what are the influences that come into Nigerian food, or how does it distinguish itself?
I think what you'll see in the Nigerian recipes is maybe just more, new world ingredients. So ingredients that weren't necessarily there, like the heavy use of tomatoes and habaneros, really, really key components of so many Nigerian dishes that came from the Americas and then were brought in. But in Nigeria, the dishes are very, I think, more insular, more cultivated, or maybe inspired by more like the West African region. Dishes like jollof rice came from the Senegal, Gambia region. Other West Africans tried it, like, that's good, and then kind of made their own version of it. So it's a lot more new world ingredients came in, but how people cooked and how people interpreted them were very much developed more within the region.
You have in your book that when you were studying for your master's, you co-wrote for a school project, a cookbook.
Yeah.
And I want to know, is there any recipes from that made it into this first one?
A version of it, because I loved Scotch eggs.
Love Scotch eggs.
They're so good.
Yeah.
But the problem I always had is that my family does not eat pork. And it's not even a religious region. I think it's because the region where my mom's family's from has so many people. Like I said, it's a lot of Arab influence, a lot of trade, and people very much cook with the expectation that anyone can come by. And so I think because so many people in the region don't eat pork, nobody eats it.
Oh, interesting.
Even if it's not yours, it's just not around.
Wow.
So I have a version that's made with chicken, like homemade chicken sausage. So I call it chicken and the egg, because it's chicken and like the egg in the middle.
First,
But it very much came out of, I wanted to make Scotch eggs for my family, and they're like, we don't want to eat pork. So I was like, okay, I'll just do chicken.
I love that. So before you joined us, we were actually talking about, so Jennifer Gardner, who does her pretend cooking show on Instagram, she was recently cited of saying that she'll never write a cookbook because she heard about, there's a lot of challenges, a lot of things that go into it. So Gemma shared a little bit about some of her challenges with writing her cookbooks. We'd love to know, what were some challenges that you overcame with writing this first one?
Honestly, the curation.
Yeah.
Is the hardest part.
That's what we were just talking about, the editing, like how to curate and edit the book, and it goes on until the publisher says no more, right?
No more, like, just leave it alone, because especially for something like AfriCal, where it's so much influenced by the flavors I grew up with, I've eaten a lot of food in my life.
Yeah.
So it's like, what the recipe list I started with was so much longer than the final, just because there came a time to just be like, we have to stop, because when I started writing the book, I had, here are all the recipes I want to do, but it was a 3-year process. So I'm still traveling. I'm still discovering new things, and the list kept getting longer and longer. So things had to get cut. And so figuring out what made it in and what is maybe saved for something else or saved for Instagram, honestly, was pretty tough.
Yeah.
Right.
But end of day, I used the stores and the shopping as a big decider. Keep it or cut it. I would go into like, all right, today I'm going to test this recipe. And if I went to 2 different stores and couldn't find the ingredients I needed, it just got crossed off.
Yeah.
That's that's a great way to do it, because then those ingredients might be harder for someone who wants to use your book to find.
Exactly. Accessibility, I think, is very important. And with this book, I was very intentional to almost help people feel at ease with African cuisine, because on a global, if we think of food regionally, it's a region people are still least familiar with because it's the least exported, it's the least published. And I wanted folks to look through that ingredient list and be like, oh, I have most of that, so I can give it a try. Or, okay, this is right next to what I normally buy, and really just get rid of as many barriers as possible. So yeah, if I couldn't find it,
That is the most
it's
satisfying thing, I'll say. If I like look at a recipe in a book and think I have almost everything already in my kitchen, it's like I feel elated.
Yeah. You're like, I'm going to make this right now.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's incredible.
I think there's two types of books, like when it comes to like international, but it's very much, I try to make it of service. I'll never say that everything is easy, because easy is very subjective, but I try to make it as least complicated for you to deliver maximum flavor, because easy and tasteless are I can't support this. Someone else's book will do that, but I'm very much a like, we will get you some flavorful, delicious meals using as much as what's accessible to
I
you.
100% support taking extra steps to make something delicious.
We call
all about
Ami
that.
our fancy lady. Takes the extra step.
Ami goes the extra step.
I go the extra step. I just, like sometimes it's just one little detail or one little, one ingredient or a couple of things, I don't know, maybe an extra step in the way you're cooking something, but that can make a world of difference and make something so good and really stand out. So worth it. Always.
100% worth it. I was having a conversation the other day about how people feel like they need recipes that are fast. They don't have time. But then how many hours are people scrolling?
Right.
Just at their phone doing nothing? Like, I think we do have the time. It's just how we allocate the time is probably more of the issue than needing to deliver every recipe to be like 5 ingredients in 15 minutes. Like, y'all got that hour.
Yeah.
The hour is there.
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes you do. Sometimes you need to throw something together, and those are those days. And then there's some days when you have a little time and you have some effort, you can take the time to make the effort to do something special.
So apart from the recipes in this book, this is your first one. What are you hoping that people can take away from it beyond just the recipes themselves?
Probably that African food is in a very unique position where for the duration of my life and well beyond it, there's been this message that this region has no food. Or, for 15 cents a day, you can feed a child, or clear your plate because you're starving kids in Africa. And so within AfriCal, you'll see that there's like travel photos. I wanted to show what the culture is like and give context, because some recipes I've taken my own interpretation from. But I really want people to understand that the region has so much vast, delicious cuisine. And there's a good chunk of it that's very accessible for you to try.
Yeah, wonderful. You said something really beautiful just at the beginning, and I just wanted to bring it back because it really resonated with me. And you talked about how your kitchen was blessed with these influences from Kenya and Nigeria. And I never really thought about how our kitchens get blessed with these influences, just that word. And I think, growing up, my parents came from India, and also they were just very into food, and so they would always bring all these different cultural foods into our kitchen, and I never really thought about it as what my kitchen was blessed with, but it really was. And I think I'm going to just hold that with me for a long time. It was a really beautiful thought, so thank you for that.
Of course. I mean, we're lucky. Anyone who grows up with delicious food, you're very fortunate. And then you get into the world, you share it with the people in your life. But I've had great food from day one. I didn't have to find it later. I keep finding more great food, but it's great food has always been there.
Yeah, I hear you.
Well, speaking of, being together and bringing people together with food, we have a lot of holidays coming up here. So what are some ways that you prepare for hosting gatherings? And what are some, for all of us, what are great ways to prepare for hosting? And then what are some recipes in your cookbook that people could maybe add to their holiday menus coming up here in the next few weeks?
Ooh, I do like, and I'm trying really hard every year to do more ahead so I can be a part of the party.
Yeah, we were just saying that. Yeah, agreed.
Because like spending the whole time in the kitchen, it's like your day is full and it's abundant, but you're missing out on the conversations, you're missing the jokes, and I want to get on the jokes too.
Yeah.
So I definitely want to do more ahead. And even though there's certain things that I love, maybe the things that are like more immediately cooked, save them for my daily cooking, and really curate a menu that is make ahead friendly.
Yeah.
Because I want to be part of the party.
Absolutely.
Kiano wants to be the party.
Yes. I think your guests can feel uncomfortable too. I just went to a dinner party to a close friend, and he's a phenomenal chef, and but was like, nobody talk to me. Everybody get out of the kitchen because I have to cook.
Wow.
And like, okay. It's, you just feel bad for them.
Stressful. It's stressful for you. It's stressful for them. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard.
It is hard. Unless I come from both my cultures where it's very much like social cooking.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, saving like one key dish for us will be chapatis. Kenyan chapatis, I've learned, are not the same as Indian chapatis, where our technique is paratha, but then our thinness is chapati.
Oh.
Roll it thinner.
Uh-huh.
It's very...
But it's layered. It's layered like
layered.
a paratha.
Is this a chapati off?
I'm saying whoever came, they just said, we're going to take the best of both of these two breads and make it into one.
Oh, it sounds so good.
Yeah, it's just like thin, flaky, layered. That we're not making that ahead because we need it warm in our hands, and it's very much social. Like someone is shaping the dough, someone's cooking, and my mom is just there hanging out with a glass of wine. She's out of cooking.
Yeah, she's done cooking now. You've taken over. Yeah.
100%.
But that's a fun way. It's you get to spend time together, cooking together.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's how we make chapatis at my house. My parents come and visit. Somebody's rolling, somebody's cooking, somebody's having a glass of wine.
Yeah. Well, this is a podcast really all about baking, and we talk a lot about dessert. And I found this quote from you that I wanted to share. You said, "Dessert to me is the food of freedom." And I just thought that was so beautiful because we talk a lot about how baking can be so therapeutic, and it does so much for the soul. And so I'd love to know what desserts in here, like, tell us a little bit about the desserts in your book, how they came to be, what they mean to you. I know you're going to share one with us a little bit later, so we could talk about that one maybe.
So in the dessert chapter, I think there's singularly there's two desserts in there, and one is pancakes, so it's not really, but sweets in there that are traditional that you'll find. It's my grandma's pancakes, which is Kenyan style pancake, very thin, and mandazi, which is like a beignet but made with coconut milk and cardamom.
Oh, wow.
So lots of flavor.
Yes.
And that's it. But dessert chapter is big. So everything else is more so desserts I love, but with ingredients that you'll commonly find. Because I think we're just eating fruit in Afro for desserts.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot of fruit-based desserts using like mango and passion fruit that come together. So my favorite one, and I'm not sure if it's my favorite through taste or favorite as like a recipe development triumph, is a green mango olive oil cake.
Ooh.
Which is not the one I made for you.
Wow.
I should have made that one. I really like that one.
You'll have to come back and bring it.
Every time I go grocery shopping, and I had this problem yesterday making what I brought, every mango in the city is a green stone.
Mm-hmm.
Cannot find the right mango for the life of me. So this happened. I was gonna, grocery shop for a thing. I'm like, I can't find the right mango. Let's see what I can do with this green one.
Mm-hmm.
And so green mangoes are very crisp. They're a little bit tart, very similar to like an apple would bring to dessert, where with paired with sugar, it's really light and refreshing. And so I grate some of that, put some on top. It's just a really classic olive oil cake, a little bit of cardamom, but it's very good. And the green mango sweetens up a little bit once you bake it, but it doesn't become too sweet.
That tangy tartness is so good. It's really yummy.
I don't think I've ever had green mango.
Me either.
They're good.
Why didn't you bring that?
Yeah.
I
No, you bought
know.
something even better.
Yeah.
And I
know.
selected
I
it
should
too.
have made it
Yeah.
because I kind of want it right now.
Well, thank you so much for coming and chatting with us today and telling us all about the inspiration behind this book, and congratulations. It's your first one. I'm sure there will be many more. If you want to check out AfriCal by Kiano Moju, you can get it at kianomoju.com. You can get it on Amazon. The link will be in the show notes below. And I think it's time we maybe try the dessert you brought for us.
Yes.
Yay, great.
So-
I'm excited.
We'll go grab it and we'll be right back.
So, Kiano, we are eagerly waiting to try this. Tell us a little bit about this dessert.
So this is the mango cheesecake. This crust is ginger snap. I have beef and great war with graham crackers. We are not friends. And I feel like those whole tea biscuits are really common both Kenya and Nigeria. I think it's a British colonial effect behind. And then inside is some mango puree and a little bit of fennel.
That's what I'm tasting.
That's what it is. Oh my gosh.
Just
wow.
And this actually borrowed from one of my favorite restaurants in London, Dishoom. They do a mango lassi and they put fennel seeds on top. And the first time I had it, I'm like, why? Why? And then once you get to the bottom of your drink and the fennels come up, you're like, oh, this is very refreshing. So after I had that, I'm like, fennel mango go together.
My favorite part of a cheesecake is the crust. And I love when I always go for that corner bite, like when the crust meets the cheesecake. And this crust is so delicious. It's perfect.
I love a ginger snap. I think all my cookie crust recipes in the book are just ginger snaps. You don't need another cookie.
I grew up on ginger snaps. I get it. We do it often around the holidays. So actually, this is the perfect dessert for the holidays. It's really delicious.
It's so good.
It's smooth, it's creamy, and then it's spicy a little bit. And then the fennel is so unique.
Yeah. The flavor of the mango really comes through, and it's sort of supported by the tang of the cheesecake. It's really, really nice.
Thank you. This is very much one of those things where I do not have a dessert person family at all. So I'm always trying to dance that line of like sweet enough to be a dessert, but not too sweet where they'll be like,
right. Well, that's what's so nice about it. It's almost, I would never say this about a cheesecake, but it's almost refreshing. It's like this, bright, fruity, delicious. It's really good.
I devoured all my crust already.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. I won't take another bite so I can say this. Well, thank you so much again to Kiano Moju for joining us today on this very special episode. Congrats again on your first cookbook, AfriCal. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it at kianomoju.com. Try this delicious mango cheesecake. If you make any of these recipes, please tag us, tag Kiano, and we will see you next time. Make sure you like, subscribe, rate, and review us anywhere you listen to podcasts. And you can always watch every episode of Need to Know on YouTube.
From HRN and the Bold Baking Network, you are watching the Need to Know Baking Entertainment podcast.